He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. You know, folks, I try to apply common sense when things get a little out of control, the rhetoric, the static, the accusations, such as what's taken place in Minnesota. Minnesota seems to be ground zero for the most radical movements in our country. It's not an accident. If you know a little bit about history, or if you want to know a little bit about history, these things do happen. They do happen. And the Democrat Party and the radical left is involved in an awful lot of it. Ever hear Bloody Thursday, May 15, 1969? Protest at Berkeley's People's Park. The governor was Ronald Reagan. He sent in state National Guard troops and police to crush demonstrators. Demonstrators who've been violent, who've destroyed things, and refused to leave. And that resulted in dozens of injuries, hundreds of arrests, and the death of James Rector. The protesters had converted a university-owned vacant lot into a community park, and Reagan said it was a direct leftist challenge to property rights. He vowed to take action. He sent in the National Guard. I'm giving you the short version. And then the police in Berkeley. Today they probably wouldn't do it. And he famously said, if a bloodbath was necessary to restore order, let's get it over with. And police used live ammunition, gun pellets, tear gas, birdshot. 13 hospitalized, 3 with punctured lungs, 1 had a shattered leg. And the president, or then the governor, defended his actions, that we had to maintain law and order against radical, violent demonstrators. Back then, it was the New Left. It was the New Left, 1969. And there were a variety of student groups, many of which weren't headed by students. Students for Democratic Action, and they gave themselves all kinds of names. And they were violent. Just as they were violent 2 summers ago in New York, on university campuses, in L.A., University of California, Berkeley. And governors have to face these things from time to time, as do presidents. Why do you think we have an Insurrection Act? An Insurrection Act that was passed over 200 years ago. Now, what's going on now that's a little different is that this is being supported fully by a major political party, the Democrat Party. Because the party's been radicalized. It is a Marxist Islamist party. It is a party that rejects Americanism. It is a party that rejects constitutionalism. It's a party that rejects law and order except their own protection by the Capitol Police and private security. So let's just cut to the chase. What's going on here? This is a party that let in perhaps 20 million illegal aliens. They didn't care if they were mass murderers, rapists, burglars, sexual predators. They didn't give a damn. They didn't care who they were or where they were from, and in fact flew them into our country. Almost 500,000 people flown into our country on your dime. They changed the immigration laws by practice. Joe Biden violated the Constitution. He would not ensure that the laws were faithfully executed. That's in the Constitution. We had a radicalized immigration system with almost no barriers to anybody coming into the country. And it's made a difference. It's changed the country. We have more Islamists here than we've ever had. And it is a huge problem. We have spies that were brought into this country. But massive numbers of criminals and people who come into our country and jump right into the welfare system, when, of course, none of that is supposed to happen. You're supposed to be self-sufficient or you don't come into the country. So we start from there. President gets elected in a landslide. Among other things, he says, I'm going to secure the border and remove these people. He secures the border, and now he's trying to remove these people, particularly the criminals. That is, people who've committed additional offenses. And he's getting resistance from the same party that brought them in the first place. And these governors, whether it's Newsom or Pritzker or Walz or Hochul or whomever, and these mayors, whether it's Fry or Mondami or whatever, Bass, they take the side of the criminals. They take the side of what is now the violent rioters. This is different than before, and there's another difference. Much of this is being funded by billionaires, dark money, from Soros and his ilk, but also by foreign governments, as Peter Schweitzer's book points out. And so now you have the men and women of ICE. They're not used to dealing with this sort of thing, where you literally have a militarized political party with governors and mayors in the Democrat Party urging people to obstruct federal law enforcement, telling local cops they may not assist federal law enforcement, refusing to assist federal law enforcement in identifying the locations of the worst of the criminals. You literally have governors out there who are gaslighting the rioters. So the Democrat Party, working with the billionaires, working with the foreign governments, this is their new constituency in many respects. And they're counting on them getting amnesty. They're counting on them staying in the country. They're counting on the Supreme Court on birthright citizenship. All in order to empower the Democrat Party. It's in my book on power. One party rule, so they can never lose. So they'll have more members of Congress. So they'll have more electoral college votes. Not from American citizens, from illegal aliens. And then the children of illegal aliens, who will also be hostile to the American system. Ready-made for the Democrat Party. Now, two things about these shootings. Number one, I and others have said that the Democrats, with the language they're using and the position they're taking, they're going to get people killed. Well, they have. They take no responsibility for it. In fact, they're all righteous about it. That it's ISIS's fault, that it's Kristi Noem's fault, that it's Trump's fault. They've created the violent, riotous situation. They have no interest. The media have no interest in who's behind it, who's organizing it. None. Zero. Because that destroys the narrative. This is the way they wish to win the midterm elections. This is the way they expect to take the presidency after Donald Trump. Because they're wrong on the issues. They can't win on the issues. This is a violent, radical political party, an alien party in many respects, that has never embraced Americanism, ever. Takes the side of those who attacked the founders and the framers. They want to change the Supreme Court in order to change the Constitution. And the list goes on and on and on, does it not? The woman who was killed in Minnesota, without getting into the particulars, almost hit an ICE agent with her car. She was asked to stop. She wouldn't stop. One ICE agent reached into the car to try and turn the car off. She sped up, almost killing the man, apparently hitting the man because he had internal injuries. But very provocative. If a cop pulls you over and you're speeding, and you speed off, and you almost hit him as you speed off, you know that could lead to a deadly situation. You know you're going to be chased. And you know if they catch you, they're going to have weapons drawn. And in this most recent case, they keep talking about we have video of this angle, that angle, another angle, another angle. I go back to basics. I am not questioning the Second Amendment. I am not questioning the right to bear arms. But who brings a gun and ammo knowing full well that you're going to be involved in a very provocative situation, that you're with a number of people who have as their purpose obstructing ICE, obstructing federal law enforcement, who's trying to detain criminals, foreign criminals? You certainly have contributed to your own endangerment. But who does that? And now we have governors. The governor of Oklahoma, we got to really change this. Republicans. I think Abbott said something a few hours ago. We got to change the way we're approaching this. We got to do. The Democrats are talking about defunding ICE or changing the whole thing. So what? So you can't get criminals? They think this is easy when you have local law enforcement, state law enforcement, local and state officials stopping you or not assisting you? It's extremely difficult. And then on top of that, there's a story in Fox. This whole thing's organized. Organized. Let me pull this up for you. Let's see if I can find it right here. All right. Far left network that helped put Alex Preddy in harm's way, then made him a martyr. This is Fox News Digital. The skirmish that led to Saturday's fatal shooting of an agitator by Border Patrol agents in Minneapolis and the response that followed were driven by a complex network of far-left organizations with a wide range of causes, Fox News Digital investigation found. You won't find this on Drudge. You won't find this on Mediaite. You won't find it in the New York Times, the Washington Post, AP, Reuters, nowhere else. A coordinated web of encrypted chats, street alerts, and tracking of ICE abductors. This is all funded. In a sophisticated database reviewed by Fox News Digital shows that agitators were already mobilized at the scene where 37-year-old Alex Preddy was killed minutes before any shots were fired. And then you got guys on CNN and elsewhere saying polls. See, the American people don't support what ICE is doing. The American people aren't being informed about what's taking place either. ICE and Border Patrol agents were there to arrest an illegal immigrant criminal, and Preddy and others were there outside a donut shop to meet them as part of a strategic pattern of organized interference with enforcement operations. I'm going to continue this. I have to take a break. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
From Fox News Digital, over the following hours, a national network of socialist, communist, and Marxist-Leninist cells in the United States. And by the way, they have the receipts here. They have the goods. There's a graphic right here. Leveraged the tragic fatality into a nationwide protest operation. While grief and outrage over Preddy's death is genuine, the network's real-time rapid response, using short, sensational video clips and emojis as weapons of propaganda, offers a window into the disciplined logistics, messaging, and coordination of far-left warriors fomenting insurgency-like confrontation with authorities. This level of engineered chaos is unique in Minneapolis. It is the direct consequence of far-left agitators working with local authorities, noted the vice president. The encrypted signal messages, obtained by Fox News Digital in real time, show that anti-ICE rapid responders, quote-unquote, were actively tracking, broadcasting, and summoning backup around federal agents outside Glom Dole Donuts on Nicollet Avenue, where the shooting happened. Local rapid responders, that's what they call themselves, made at least 26 entries into a database called Minnesota ICE Plats in the critical hours before and after the killing, documenting the license plate numbers and details of alleged ICE vehicles they claim to see around Nicollet Avenue. The entry at row 344 read, "At the Nicollet murder, chronicling a black Jeep Wagoneer at the location with agents allegedly involved in shooting." Row 338 had a Glom Doll Donuts entry tracking a black Ford Taurus. You see what's going on here? Now, I want to finish this when we return. There's a lot to do. There's Iran. There's China. We're going to have Gordon Chang on in hour 3. Looks like a coup attempt that failed, but we'll get into that. I'll be right back.
When Mark Levin speaks, the backbenchers take notes. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
In addition to this fantastic radio show, thanks to you folks, we will be launching our video podcast in February, just a couple of weeks. And I'll keep you informed about that. So we will have the mothership is the radio program all 3 hours. We have our Fox program on the weekends, and we will have a video podcast. It'll typically air, I've decided, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays for about 40-45 minutes. Again, it'll be video as well, and we'll see how that goes. We have a lot of desire for people to see video broadcasting, and that's what we will do. But again, I consider radio the mothership, and I always will. It is a great love of mine and a passion of mine, and always has been. Well, let me get back to this. At 9:50 a.m. Eastern Time, writes Fox Digital, just before the killing of Preddy, a user identified as Willow shared a 22-second video on an encrypted signal chat for the anti-ICE rapid responders. These are the rioters. 26 and 3rd, wrote Willow, quickly following up with outside Glomdal. So they give themselves these names, you see. Video showed 2 agents, one wearing a vest marked police, studying the front door of Glomdal, that's the donut shop, before walking away. Passed a sign in the window that read, "ICE out of Minnesota." So you understand, folks, that these insurrectionists do not want bad criminals who are foreigners removed from this country. As the camera rolled, the person filming yelled, "No!" The camera followed the agents as they returned to a maroon Dodge Durango, passing another sign in the window that read, "All welcome here." In the video, someone shouted, "Get out of here!" Now, these are federal law enforcement trying to enforce federal law. Just 3 minutes later, at 9:53 a.m. Eastern Time, a second signal user, Salacious B. Crumb, escalated the alert, summoning additional responders, that is, rioters, and citing the same vehicle and agents. Backup needed at the Black Forest Inn parking lot on Nicollet Avenue, just south of 26th Street, the message read. It said multiple vehicles with many agents appear to be staging here. One confirmed ICE vehicle seen was a maroon Dodge Durango. Plate number, fill in the blank, but it is driven away northbound on Nicollet. Fox News Digital has redacted the Florida license plate number, including in the original message. Now, this is why the Democrats want these men and women not to wear masks, you see, so they can track them down at their homes. This is anarchy. The Democrat Party's in on it, and you have Republicans who are buckling to it. ICE Assistant Director Marcos Charles said Sunday that the violence on the street was not a coincidence, considering the chaos and mayhem that agitators are fomenting in Minneapolis. At the same press conference, Customs and Border Patrol Commander at Large Greg Bovino confirmed that Preddy was on the scene several minutes before the fatal shooting. Video of the scene shows that as Preddy stepped into the middle of Nicollet Avenue to direct traffic, fellow agitators could be heard blowing whistles to alert locals that ICE officers were around. Soon after, Preddy ended up in a street confrontation with CBP agents across the street from the Glam Dole Donuts outside a Warren storefront marked New American Development Center, a nonprofit focused on immigration entry programs for Somalis. Within minutes, at about 10:05 a.m. Eastern Time, at least one CBP agent shot Preddy, killing him. At 10:18, the signal network erupted, using a red phone emoji to signal an all-points bulletin. A message blasted out, "Easy, urgent. Observers urgently requested a Glam Dole Donuts at 26th and Nicollet." The alert continued. An observer has been shot by ICE, unknown condition, EMTs present. Please be safe. Medics requested to join perimeter in case agents start gassing. Be aware there are many agents. Minneapolis Police Department officers are present. Within minutes, far-left activists descended on Nicollet Avenue. Soon after, a video showed corrugated boxes of supplies apparently lined up on Minneapolis sidewalk for protesters, including boxes marked designer masks and free winter hats next to piles of bottled water. You see how organized and funded this is, Rich? Within hours, socialist leaders turbocharged their rapid responders in Minneapolis, mobilized street protesters from New York City to Los Angeles. Media outlets, including CNN and MSN Now, described angry protesters but failed to identify the ideological networks behind the mobilization. And Drudge and Mediaite and the rest of them are ignoring this completely, too. Even as protesters flashed their signs with their logos and names, touting socialism, communism, Marxism on camera. Minneapolis activation marked the beginning of an almost instantaneous weekend surge by far-left groups, including hardened socialist and communist groups operating on an ecosystem the national security experts describe as an insurgent-style operation designed to exploit tragedy to wage a domestic political war. And, of course, they have the Democrats there helping them. The strategy mirrors past mobilizations, including the aftermath of George Floyd's killing on May 2020, and exploits well-intentioned public sympathy by rapidly framing Petrie, an intensive care unit nurse as a Veterans Administration hospital, as a symbol of resistance, much like Renee Good, the first victim of an ICE shooting. Just as they responded in real time to Mobilize comrades, quote-unquote, to march on the streets within 12 hours of the U.S. arrest of Venezuelan strongman Nicolas Maduro in early January, socialist, communist, and Marxist-Leninist groups now frame their activation as an action within the belly of the beast, quote-unquote, against the hyper-imperialism, quote-unquote, of the United States. Based on a digital analysis of scores of rapid response messages from the killing on Saturday, a hub of communist and socialist nonprofit organizations emerged as key organizers of the protest. Many of them are funded by American-born billionaire Neville Roy Singham. This guy's the worst. He's like Soros on the steroids. A self-declared Marxist-Leninist living in communist China in Shanghai. Some are also offshoots of the People's Forum, Inc., a nonprofit house Singham has funded in New York City since 2017 as an incubator for socialist and communist groups. The People's Forum declined a request for comment. At 10:48 a.m., Breakthrough News, a 501c3 nonprofit propaganda arm of the People's Forum, broke the news widely of the killing, sharing a video recorded from inside the Glam Dole donut shop of the tussle outside, punctuated by gunshots and frantic narration. Holy S, what the F? Did they effing kill that guy? Effing kidding me, dude. Breakthrough News put a dramatic black and white caption over the video. Breaking, another CBP shooting in Minneapolis. By Sunday afternoon, the video had 4.1 million views. Alongside the outlet's calls to support the People's Republic of China, Venezuela's Maduro, and the Communist Revolution in Cuba. Before the video cuts off, someone can be heard saying, "Yo, we need people on our site." At 11:40 a.m., Breakthrough News broadcasts a 39-second video purporting to show state police charging across the street with batons, some falling as clouds of breath rose in the cold air. Soon after 12:24 p.m., the Party for Socialism and Socialism and Liberation, a political wing of the movement, working with shared leadership, the People's Forum, published a quickly made graphic. CPB murders another in Minneapolis, and the message, expand the general strike. The call for a general strike, a classic communist tactic, refers to coordinated mass work stoppages aimed at paralyzing civil society to force police and economic outcomes. And you see what they've done? In Washington, we're going to shut down the Department of Homeland Security. At 12:33 p.m., the People's Forum blasted out a bold red and white poster to followers, calling for an emergency protest 4 p.m. Eastern Time at Union Square in Midtown Manhattan, with the message, "Stop ICE terror." You're wondering how all these people show up for these different events all over the country? I'm showing you how right now, thanks to Fox News Digital. In lockstep at 12:57 p.m., so the shooting occurs about 3.5 hours early. You see how this is all organized? Democratic Socialists of America, a 501c3 nonprofit that elected Zohar Mamdani as mayor, posted a stark black and white graphic on X calling the killing an execution and demanding abolish ICE now. At the protest, Linda Sarsour, a radical left-wing Palestinian political operative, who has led virulently anti-Israel protests, anti-Semitic protests with socialist organizations, rallied the crowd at 4 p.m., protests yelling, "We will bring this country to a halt. We will bring this country to a halt." The People's Forum shared the 22-second video clip with the caption, "Happening now in New York City." So they create these events. The media come and report on it. Media aggregator sites like Drudge and Mediaite feed this stuff over and over and over again. The New York Times picks it up. The Washington Post picks it up. CNN, MSNBC. Even my Saturday show was preempted, right, Mr. Producer? Other groups mobilized simultaneously, including Freedom Road Socialist Organization, a self-described Marxist-Leninist group that has waved its red flag with its acronym FRSO in the middle of the protest since Good's killing. Also active, the Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee, which has led many of the rapid response efforts, and Black Lives Matter chapters, which led the recent stampede through a local Christian church. By early evening, the narrative had coalesced in the chorus of voices within the far-left propaganda apparatus, adopting charged historical language to brand federal officials as Nazi-like figures. At 4:12 p.m., Kala Walsh, a controversial communist activist, filmed this past summer in Iran shouting, "Death to America, death to Israel," shared a 32-second video showing barricades built with Republic Services dumpsters. She wrote, "People in Minnesota build barriers, trapping ICE Gestapo at the scene of their last murder in broad daylight, not far from where they killed Renee Good, couple of weeks ago, not far from where George Floyd was killed in 2020. By evening, CNN was reporting from the 4 p.m. protest in New York City, but did not identify the ideological affiliations of the groups, even as activists openly carried signs from the Party for Socialism and Liberation with the group's full name printed across the bottom. Another CNN segment from Minneapolis interviewed Chris Gray, describing him only as Preddy's next-door neighbor. Gray spoke about Preddy while delivering a well-scripted appeal for a general strike to dismantle, quote-unquote, the Trump regime and promote nonviolent resistance. But that segment didn't disclose that Gray is a member of the Socialist Alternative, the U.S. affiliate of the International Socialist Alternative, quote, a global fighting organization of workers, young people, and all those oppressed by capitalism and imperialism, to seek and create a socialist world. Soon after, Socialist Alternative shared the interview proudly on Instagram. In other words, pushed the CNN interview. And then it goes on and on and on. I have all the fine print from all the communications that took place. We will post this on the mothership, on the Mark Levin Show website, but I want you to know what's going on. And so when you see Republicans, like the governor of Oklahoma, to some extent the governor of Texas, when you see the senator from Louisiana, and when you hear everybody saying, we got to change what we're doing, the enemy wins. Now remember, in past conflicts of this sort, whether it's the Vietnam War, excuse me, whether there's other riots taking place, what we call the New Left from the 1960s and 1970s, where they had these different organizations, very violent organizations, and these organizations are very violent too. We had cops in Democrat cities, but back then you would have a Daley or a Rizzo or something like that. They wouldn't put up with this crap. They'd put it down. You might have a Democrat governor, they'd put it down too. We're at least all united in the notion that you back law enforcement and you don't support these communist movements, socialist movements, and these other movements, and yet the Democrat Party now is part of those movements. Now you have the rest of the story, America. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
So it's very troubling to me here with Fox Digital that has gathered this information, has the actual evidence. It provides it on its website story. Drudge doesn't use it. Mediaite doesn't use it. AP doesn't use it. Reuters doesn't use it. New York Times doesn't use it. Washington Post doesn't use it. CNN doesn't use it. MS Now doesn't use it. Nobody uses it. And yet, isn't it the full story? That the war against ICE is being funded and organized by a billionaire in communist China, among others, through communist and socialist front groups in our country that have an enormously sophisticated communication system protected under a signal umbrella. And you can actually see the communications and the action plans minute by minute. And that's not part of the story because they want the Democrats to win the midterm elections, because they want a government shutdown showdown. And the Democrats know this too. And the Democrats want this. They're at war with ICE too, just as they were at war with local cops 4 or 5 years ago. Just as they're at war with our military in the 1960s and 70s. We've seen this before, but not as sophisticated as before. This is why these people are showing up at these various violent protests, whether it's against Jews in Israel, whether it's for Maduro. Think about that. For Maduro. They're not in the streets right now about Iran slaughtering its people because it's communist, socialist, Islamist against we the people. And our media, but for just a couple of platforms like Fox Digital, our media are doing nothing to inform the American people, then they're going to take a poll. The American people are very tired of this. They're very tired of ICE. And this guy, Preddy, was just an ICU guy at a veterans hospital. I mean, just a regular guy. I don't know if he was a regular guy or not. He's there with a handgun and ammo. That much I know. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I just heard Brett Baer say that they're going to go over that Fox Digital information tomorrow on Fox News. So that's very important, and that's very good. But the problem is there are tens of millions of people who are never going to hear about this. Luckily, there's millions of you in the audience, but outside of me and him, nobody's going to hear about this. So I just posted it. I posted the article, and I think we have to take it upon ourselves to email that article or text it to as many people as we know who can read it and will understand what's taking place. It's very important to understand that there is a war going on against ICE and on behalf of illegal immigrants and illegal immigration to empower the Democrat Party, which has become a party with a significant Marxist, socialist, Islamist population and following now. That's what we're up against. Excuse me. I want to talk about Iran. About 40,000 people have been slaughtered in Iran in less than 4 weeks. Many of the people who are slaughtering the people in Iran, who are Persians, are Arabs who were brought in, Hezbollah, and from militia in Iraq. They're brutalizing these people. You can go online and you can see for yourself. And they have now said that anybody who takes a video and puts it online in any way or in some way will also be executed. The cockroach, the super cockroach, Khomeini, is in hiding. He's got several very deeply built underground bunkers. It seems to me the Islamists are very good at building these tunnels and bunkers, like rats, like cockroaches. And it's quite a labyrinth. There are pictures of it out there. I just want to say this. You know, I've studied this subject of totalitarian regimes, whether they be Marxists or fascists. We've discussed many of them over the decades. And here's the thing. Not until 1944 did the American people, your parents and grandparents, know not even the full extent, but the fact that there was a genocide, an extermination of Jews taking place in Europe. For the vast majority of the Holocaust, the American people didn't know about it. They didn't know about it because the New York Times covered it up, the Washington Post covered it up, FDR wanted it covered up, and it was covered up. There were many books written about this. It's also a great book written about the Holocaust against the Ukrainians in 1932-33, when Stalin was reigning. How that was covered up also by the New York Times. But you know What's important to note about what's going on in Iran today is that we know what's going on in Iran today. We know what's taking place in Iran today. We know that more people have been slaughtered in a shorter period of time than really any time I can think of in modern history. And it's still going on. And so I ask myself and I ask you, Mr. and Mrs. America, what's happened to us? What has happened to the Western world? Where the best Europe can do is issue statements and condemnations. France and Spain won't even agree that the EU should tag Iran as a terrorist regime. What has happened? And the president is still weighing options, but the USS Abraham Lincoln is there. It's there right now. Now I'm reading articles, but they're concerned about the drones. They're concerned about... Then why did you send it in the first place? At least within reach of the drones. I read they're talking maybe about a cutting off Iran, the ocean. And maybe we will take out Khomeini, which is what needs to be done to put an end to this and to protect our country once and for all. And I have hope that that's still going to happen. And yet, there's debate. There's debate. What has happened to us? We're surrounded by morons in the media that keep talking about forever wars. If Khomeini's not taken out, that's a forever war. If he's taken out, it ends. But they don't even know what they're talking about, these people. Or the sloganeering. Then you see this guy, Tucker Carlson, he said he was going to buy a house in Qatar. He's tight with them, and now he's giving a speech in Saudi Arabia. And he's still friends with people in high office, I guess. And every other word out of his mouth is either Israel or Jews. It's sick. It's unbelievable. Now, this is not what you believe or I believe. It's not about conservatism, constitutional conservatism. It's not about MAGA, which in many ways is the old Tea Party. You and I have stood shoulder to shoulder on these matters. Is the world losing its conscience, its morality? Is that what's happening? Well, what's happening? Iran is weaker than it's ever been, ever. He needs to call in, Khomeini does, outside terrorists and militia to help kill his own people. Really? What's becoming of us? What have we become? I don't know. I don't know. It's none of our business, people keep saying. Tens of thousands of people being slaughtered, and we can actually do so. It's not like the Uyghurs in China. I wish we could, but there's nothing we can do about that. But here, you're talking about a regime that still wants to blow us off the face of the earth with nuclear weapons. They're not going to stop. They say, yeah, you took out our sites, but we still have the knowledge, and we're not stopping. We know what their ideology is. It's the Islamist ideology. It is a bloodlust. It is a murder cult. And they have us in their focus. We see what their offshoots are doing in our own country with these mosques and these communities and so forth and so on. And now they have a missile that can go 10,000 miles to hit the east coast of the United States. The communists, the Islamists, all united against you and me, Mr. and Mrs. America. But they're slaughtering these people left. They're not even fighting another country, another army. They're killing their own people this way. And we're still figuring out, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do? Saudi Arabia is moving hardcore Islamists back, like what was during 9/11 when it attacked our country. Let's stop playing games. They attacked our country, okay? Well, they were... No, Saudi Arabia attacked our country, okay? With its terrorists, with its pilots. That's what they did. Well, now, this crown prince, who everybody, oh, he's for the West, the Abraham Accords. No, he's not. They used to hate Qatar. Now they're tight with Qatar. They used to hate Erdogan and Turkey. Now they're tight with Turkey. So these are the three: Qatar, Turkey, Saudi Arabia. What else? Saudi Arabia is trying to destabilize the UAE. Why do we care? Because the UAE is actually our closest Arab ally in the Middle East and is actually a very good ally. And by the way, are very friendly with the state of Israel. In other words, it's showing Arab countries what they can be and should be. Saudi Arabia is now trying to dethrone that monarchy. Saudi Arabia objected to attacks on the Houthis. Saudi Arabia has lobbied our government, our president, along with Qatar and Turkey, not to take out Khomeini. And then look at Gaza. The idea that Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, among others, are going to be on a board of peace. Sorry. I thought we weren't going to do democracy building, but apparently the only place we're going to do democracy building is in Gaza. I'm just pointing it out. Nowhere else, just there. Somebody told me the plan is to build $25 billion and build up the area so people will become more assimilated into modernity. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about this for a second. These regimes are exporting their Islamists to our country, which is an advanced capitalist civilization with all kinds of big buildings and movies and everything else. What makes anybody think if you take $25 billion and put it in Gaza and build up Gaza, that all of a sudden, or even over a course of years, that people have been indoctrinated for 3-4 generations to hate the West, to hate Christians, to hate Jews, and to destroy them and kill them in the worst ways possible, that $25 billion is going to be able to do what the United States can't do for the Islamists right here in our own country, which they want to overthrow. That's just my thoughts. Just talking out loud. And I don't think it's the president, by the way. It's some of the people I've mentioned over the course of this several-year period. But Saudi Arabia is back. It's been radicalized again. It thinks that's how it'll survive and get wealthy and bigger. Qatar's never stopped. And, of course, Turkey's run by a madman, a genocidal maniac, who ran a socialist Islamist party and then seized power, because that's what socialist Islamists do, like National Socialists. But just because the press isn't covering it, just because Iran is really a concentration camp where the lights are off, the communications are off, and on and on and on, doesn't mean people aren't being slaughtered, because they are. And the world doesn't give an S. It just doesn't. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to big wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk. I think between the Marxist Islamists and the neo-fascists, you'll see the overlay, right? I mean, you got a guy like Tucker Carlson who spends a lot of time in Qatar and Saudi Arabia. I don't think he spends any time in Israel, does he, Mr. Producer? Of course not. Well, that's the one democracy. But he spends a lot of time in these police states, and he's welcoming them. I had a senator tell me, Mark, next time I come to Saudi Arabia, you should come with me. I said, what the hell for? You'd like the Crown Prince. I said, I don't like him. And I'm not going there. They ever tell you that, Rich? It's true, about 3 months ago. You'd like him. I said, I have no interest in it. You're going to see enormous wealth. You're going to see buildings like you haven't seen since, the late 1700s in France and the monarchy there. I'm thinking to myself, who cares? Think about all the people who've come before who've been slaughtered in these regimes, including my people, the American people on 9/11. I'm not shaking hands with these people. I'm not doing it. The other day was the horrific anniversary of the decapitation of Daniel Pearl. It's done by KSM. And KSM was the mastermind behind 9/11. Now, 9/11 likely would not have happened but for the fact that the Qataris gave this guy safe haven, gave him cover, the FBI's coming to get him, and they let him go. In fact, they helped him to leave when the FBI had to give him, a heads up that they're coming because it's a sovereign country, Qatar is a country of 330,000 people. Look at the power it has. I don't know what the hell's in Saudi Arabia. Quick Google check. Probably a few million. And we and the British found all that oil under that land. They didn't even do that. And in the case of Qatar, natural gas. And look how rich they are. And they want to destroy our country. Oh, yes, they do. And, of course, they want to destroy Israel. You know, it's interesting. Israel could take its military today, listen to this, and destroy Saudi Arabia and Qatar and take over both countries and have all that oil and natural gas if Israel was of the same mindset as Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the Palestinian terrorists. It would conquer those countries. But Israel doesn't conquer countries. And neither do we. And neither do we. But I have to ask myself, and I do ask myself, not just talking about our country, but the entire West is going to stand by and allow this to take place in Iran against the regime that wants to blow us off the face of the earth, against an Islamist Nazi regime that funds the terrorists who attack us, which is in its weakest position since its founding in 1979? It's on its back? I don't know. I don't get it. I'll be right back. You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk.
In a world of pathetic liberal potholes, he's a truck full of hot constitutional asphalt. Mark Levin. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
This governor in Minnesota is an absolute wrecking ball, the amount of fraud and crime that takes place. I remember really that Minnesota wasn't always in the news. It was never in the news. At least not the national news. Nice state, pretty left-wing. Democrat Farmers Labor Party, or whatever the hell it was called. Hubert Humphrey and Walter Mondale. Very liberal, but seemed to be okay. Minneapolis, St. Paul, they used to be considered very nice and safe cities. Remember that, Mr. Producer? And now look what's happened. You're not allowed to say it. What's happened is mass migration of the third world, particularly Islamists, and this Marxist ideology that is basically the ideology of the Democrat Party. See, they want to shut the government down. Now, let me say this to you folks. DHS is in charge of TSA, so they want to disrupt your flights even more than the weather. The Border Patrol, so they don't want our border secured. And, of course, the removal of criminals from our cities. And they don't want to do it. They are owned by the Islamist Marxists. That's their new base. You can see that's their militia wing, just as they had a militia wing during the George Floyd and BLM riots. Antifa, they're out there too, funded by the hard left. All this stuff's going on. And the type of propaganda, demagoguery used by these Democrats and their media is really the worst I've ever heard, ever. And here's this guy, Tim Walz, who's a nobody. From Fox, prominent Holocaust museum releases scathing response after Walz compares Minnesota children to Anne Frank. Do we have that cut, Mr. Producer? Let's listen to this. Cut 3, go.
We have got children in Minnesota hiding in their houses, afraid to go outside. Many of us grew up reading that story of Anne Frank. Somebody's going to write that children's story about Minnesota. And there's one person who can end this now.
You understand, these politicians are trying to think of the most horrendous way to draw attention, to grab headlines. And one tries to outdo the next. And now poor Anne Frank, a citizen in her own country, seized by the Nazis like the rest of her family after hiding, excuse me, in the attic of a neighbor for several years. You heard what he said. The U.S. Holocaust Museum posted the following today. Anne Frank was targeted and murdered solely because she was Jewish. Leaders making false equivalencies to her experience for political purposes is never acceptable. Despite tensions in Minneapolis, exploiting the Holocaust is deeply offensive, especially as anti-Semitism surges. Yes. That's right. And this comment sparked criticism from many on social media. President Donald Trump's anti-Semitism envoy, he condemned it. Governor Tim Walz's decision to compare federal immigration enforcement in Minnesota to Anne Frank and the Holocaust is dangerous, disgusting, and profoundly irresponsible, said retired Minnesota State Patrol Lieutenant John Nagel, running for Congress as a Republican against Representative Ilhan Omar. No matter where people stand on immigration policy or recent enforcement actions, invoking the Holocaust, one of the darkest chapters in human history, has no place in responsible public leadership. These comparisons do not clarify the debate, they distort it. He said Walz's comment is a troubling pattern rather than an isolated remark. He has repeatedly reached for extreme historical analogies. That's the key point, including references to Nazis and the Gestapo. When discussing law enforcement and political opponents, that kind of rhetoric matters. When elected officials portray police or federal agents as Nazis, they create an environment where protesters can convince themselves that violently confronting law enforcement is not only justified, but morally required. That is how words turn into real world danger. That's right. Blood on the hands of these Democrats, including him. Including him. Numerous activists across the country have used Nazi comparisons while blasting the Trump administration's crackdown on illegal immigrants, including Mexican-American journalist Maria Hinojosa, compared Latino children in the U.S. to Jewish children during the Holocaust. You believe this crap? Saying some fear abduction and death like Anne Frank. And Walz appeared to be striking a less inflammatory tone when he was speaking to the president by phone. Look, I don't care. The guy is horrendous. He's horrendous in every way. He is, like I wrote in On Power, and we've talked about over many years, this is called agitprop. Agitprop really is a word that Lenin came up with during and after the revolution in Russia. And the point is to marry propaganda with action. That the purpose of the propaganda is to incite action. Agitprop. A-G-I-T-P-R-O-P, one word. And this is what the Democrats do, agitprop. It's Leninist, it's Marxist, and that's what they do. And they try to find the most egregious historical examples. We actually have a Holocaust going on in Iran today, and you don't hear Democrats wanting to do a damn thing about it. You don't. Now, many presidents have used, as we talked about, the Insurrection Act to put down violent protests, including cases much less serious than what we're seeing in Minnesota. Insurrection Act's been used almost 30 times by presidents of both parties, and it was passed early in our republic. President hasn't even used the Insurrection Act. He hasn't even called in the National Guard to put down these organized, violent, Marxist, socialist, Islamist, illegal immigration riots that are taking place. As I discussed at great length in the first hour. It's not even being reported. But now it's Anne Frank, you see. They will use anything, they will say anything. Anne Frank. Here's dangerous anti-ICE rhetoric from Walz and Mayor Fry. Cut one, go.
In Minneapolis, we will not cooperate with ICE or any federal agency.
What they are doing is causing chaos and distrust.
These Border Patrol officers
Of course, I bear responsibility to bring down the temperature.
To ICE, get the out of here.
Sure, that's part of my role as mayor. And by the way, protests here in Minneapolis are peaceful.
The desire to get out and protest and to speak up to this administration of how wrong this is, that is a patriotic duty. That is a patriotic duty.
We have had...
That's enough. So a guy shows up, this guy Preddy, with a pistol and ammunition. Right? And he confronts the ICE, the police, federal police, and gets him to skirmish with them. Now, if he showed up on January 6th at the Capitol building, what would the Democrats say about that, Mr. Producer? Oh, my. Remember the woman who was shot, killed in the Capitol building? She was unarmed, shot right through the door. Remember that? The Democrats defended the shooting and the shooter. Anybody remember that? Ashley Babbitt. No, they dismiss it. She shouldn't have been there. She didn't even have a weapon. She didn't even confront the police officer who killed her through a door. But Preddy, who brings a weapon, well, he was reaching for his phone, but they saw the weapon and they did this. Look, I'm into the Second Amendment. We have weapons. I would never, ever bring them to an event like that. Ever. And by the way, why did he have his weapon? Who was he going to defend himself from, Mr. Producer? People don't even talk about that. Why did he bring the weapon? I don't care what anybody else says in the media. I don't care how they want to be considered politically correct. I don't care what the governor of Texas has to say. I don't care especially what the governor of Oklahoma has to say, and we'll play that in a minute. What's the end game here? What kind of an idiot says that? I don't care what the senator from Louisiana has to say. Not Kennedy, the other guy, whose name I can't remember. It doesn't matter. He's always up there. He's ready to bend his knees. He's such a knee-jerk rhino. It's not even... Cassidy, that's it. Bill Cassidy. Yeah. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to big wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk. All right, here's the governor of Oklahoma on Sunday on CNN. Cut 9, go.
But now Americans are asking themselves, what is the end game? What is the solution? And, you know, we believe in federalism and state rights, and nobody likes feds coming into their state.
This has to be one of the dumbest governors I've heard in my life. Federalism. Does he know what the Constitution says about immigration? The federal government has a plenary role in immigration. And thank God it does, or imagine what would be going on all over these blue states. That's number one. Number two, You want to talk about the Constitution, Governor Stitt? Well, states and cities don't have the authority to declare themselves sanctuary states and cities for the purpose of defying federal constitutional requirements and federal law that is passed under those federal constitutional requirements. Then you ask, what's the end game? What do you mean, what's the end game? The end game is to remove illegal aliens from our country. That's the end game. Now, I had a real governor, America's governor, Ron DeSantis, on my program Sunday night on Fox. I hope you saw them. They're not in fights with ICE. They're working with ICE. Every city has to work with ICE. That's the state law. They don't have these rioters. They don't have these left-wing groups because they make sure that they comply with the law. That's the end game, Governor Stitt of Oklahoma. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Well, Communist China at the highest levels has a lot going on. We're going to have Gordon Chang on in about 15, 20 minutes. Let's read some of these stories about it because they kind of have a different take. Xi has absolute control over Chinese military. Now he wants more. Chinese leader Xi Jinping's decision to place the country's top-ranking general under investigation is a stunning move that leaves Xi virtually alone at the top of the military hierarchy, raising deep questions about the implications for the world's largest armed forces, as well as Beijing's ambitions to take control of Taiwan. But the purge also makes one thing clear. Xi sees no target as too big to be taken down, as he remakes the military according to his vision and prioritizes loyalty over all else. The investigations into Zhang Zhiji, a battle-tested, seasoned military commander and longtime Xi ally, in fact, they grew up together, and Liu Zhenle, who heads People's Liberation Army joint operations, were announced Saturday in a terse 30-second video released by the Defense Ministry. A subsequent editorial in the People's Liberation Army Daily accused both men of seriously trampling on and undermining the system of ultimate responsibility, resting with the central... the commercials, hold on, the ads. Resting with the Central Military Commission chairman. Jargon suggests they were a threat to the thing that matters most, Xi's authority. Now, what he does with people like that is he executes them. Disappears them, to use Democrat language. The allegations mark an apparent culmination in a ruthless, more than decade-long effort by Xi to oust opposition and clean up alleged graft. In recent years, that purge has depleted the military's upper echelon, with more than 20 senior military officials placed under investigation or ousted since 2023. Just how deep that effort runs, excuse me. Damn it, I got another commercial that jumped in here. Bear with me, folks. Some of these websites are very annoying. All right, the allegation, just how deep that effort runs is now even clearer, and that is now made even clearer in the probe against Zhang. The general had long been seen as an unassailable close ally of Xi, another princeling son of revolutionaries whose ties with the Chinese leader go back a generation to their fathers, who fought together in China's Civil War. You understand, their fathers fought in Mao's revolution. Their fathers were very close, and so their sons were very close. But it doesn't matter to Xi in the end, does it? This is potentially a seismic shift in Chinese politics under Xi and how he governs. This really demonstrates nobody in that system is safe, truly, said Jonathan Zinn, a fellow at the Brookings Institute China Center. Now, the purge has reached a crescendo now where it's hit the uppermost echelons of the party, he said, as also former CIA analyst on China. That suggests Xi has concluded the rot is so deep in the PLA and the mismanagement so gross at the top that he needs to clean house within an entire generation of leaders. Now, we don't know if the corruption charges are accurate. He accuses everybody of corruption, and he's probably the biggest rip-off artist humanity's ever known. And when it comes to Zhang, the downfall is almost Shakespearean, coming within the broader arc of how Xi began by going after enemies, profiting off their positions, moved on to target even those he appointed himself, and is now talking down even those with whom he's had a long-standing relationship. For Xi to get rid of a guy like this is really remarkable, because there's so little trust and because the politics are so vicious in this system. Those kind of relationships are even more of a precious commodity. They don't take years to build, they take decades. In this instance, potentially a lifetime. Now, the circumstances around Zhang's investigation remain unclear, likely not only to those outside, but also within the black box of China's military, a massive and opaque entity even by China's usual standards. Wall Street Journal reported, citing sources familiar with a high-level briefing on the allegations, that Zhang had been accused of leaking core technical data on China's nuclear weapons to the United States. This is his buddy, as well as accepting bribes for official acts, including the promotion of an officer to defense minister. CNN has not verified those claims and has reached out to China's defense ministry for comment. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Sure, they'll give you a comment. But some experts wonder whether allegations of sharing secrets could merely be part of the party's effort to drum up explanations to ease concern within its ranks rather than legitimate concerns. There's no question about that. Now, rumors have swirled in the vacuum of information. Those include speculation that Xi losing his grip on power, a theory experts largely reject. I'll be interested to hear what Gordon Chang has to say. Others have focused on whether Xi is quashing rival factions within the military, which some observers say is plausible, if the leader believed infighting was distracting top officials or if Zhang was becoming a challenge to his authority. The official language used in the PLA daily editorial could suggest that Zhang was becoming too powerful for Xi's liking. According to Neil Thomas, a fellow at the Asian Society Policy Institute for China. Could also mean simply that he betrayed Xi's trust by helping corrupt the procurement bureaucracy and also not doing his utmost to create a cleaner fighting force. Since coming to power in 2012, Xi has driven a sweeping effort to reshape the military, not just to make it into a modern force, able to take on rivals like the United States and back China's territorial claims, but more importantly, to defend the party and its leader no matter what. Now listen to me. That's the key. The Democrat Party is defending their party in the United States no matter what. The embrace of the Islamists and the Marxists, the embrace of lawlessness. The party is bigger than the country. That's what they believe. The Communist Chinese, and the Communist Democrats. Very similar in that respect. The party comes first. Everything and anything is done for the party. And you see that in our country. That's a goal that's widely seen as driven by Xi's shrewd look at history, as he eyes autocratic regimes that have fallen when leaders lost control of the military. It's also one that is closely linked to the organization of China's military, which is controlled by the party, not the state. Got that? Just as the Democrat Party wants to control what ICE does, whether they win elections or lose elections. Just like they want to control immigration and the lack of enforcement, even when they lose elections on that issue. See that? Just like the Communist Party. That's right, I said it. A massive reorganization and technological modernization have gone hand in hand with an anti-corruption drive. Dozens of high-ranking military officials and defense sector executives have been taken down in the latest wave since 2023. This is really an ideological thing. It's less of a corruption thing. But Xi's push to purge even his top brass more likely stands as testament to his power than weakness. The fact that Xi Jinping has been able to cashier so many PLA elites since he assumed power is a clear sign his position in the regime is unassailable, says James Charr, an assistant professor at the whatever. The latest move now leaves Xi virtually alone at the top of China's military hierarchy. The powerful Central Military Commission he chairs had 6 uniformed members after a regular leadership reshuffle in 2022. The latest probe leaves just one. Just one. High-level ousters have left the PLA leadership in a state of disarray right now, said Thomas. Barely any officers left at the rank of general. I'm sure there are capable people waiting in the wings, but they'll all be new to senior leadership positions. He said, noting Xi may use the more than 18 months before the next leadership reshuffle to vet new leadership candidates and weed out the influence of existing patronage relations. In the meantime, he has already been tapping second-line PLA officers to largely informally fill roles vacated by their disgraced predecessors across both the Central Military Commission departments and branches of the military. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All right, we're here with our friend Gordon Chang. He's a senior fellow at the Gatestone Institute, one of my favorite organizations, by the way. Gordon, welcome. All right, let's just ask you the broad question. What has been happening in communist China?
Thank you, Mark. We know that the Ministry of National Defense has reported that General Zhang Yaoshao, who is the #1 uniformed officer in China, has been arrested and is under investigation for various crimes. There's also another senior general who has been reported arrested. But beyond that, Mark, we really don't know what's going on. And this is one of the most important things, and perhaps the most important and consequential event in the world today, and we know very little about it. There are so many different rumors. The rumors are that Xi Jinping is in complete control of the Chinese military. Other people are saying that General Zhang is no longer in custody. And if that's true, we have to figure out what's happened. There are rumors that there was a coup. There was a rumor that there was an exchange of gunfire between Xi Jinping's bodyguards and forces loyal to Zhang Yaoshao. And then the beat goes on and on. So yes, there's a lot occurring, but we just don't know because the regime is so opaque.
Let me ask you this about Xi. I don't think there's been a communist leader as powerful since Mao. Am I wrong about that?
You're correct about that. He is extremely powerful. But because of what he's doing, he's creating all sorts of dynamics that are undermining his power. So he's pursuing policies that are actually pushing the Chinese economy into contraction. And with his purges in the military, which he's been successful at for more than a decade, he has created even more instability and opposition to himself.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I would think. And yet, nobody seems to be able to take him down. Or maybe not yet anyway, right?
Not yet anyway. That's absolutely right. And part of it is because senior Communist Party elders, previous leaders, people who have been influential in the past, believe that it's important to maintain the appearance of stability. So although there's a lot of opposition to Xi Jinping, it is not coalesced to the point where they are willing to get rid of him. But there is a lot of unhappiness in the regime right now toward him. And so I think that his position is fragile.
But even in front of his big assembly a couple of years back, he basically ridiculed, humiliated, and dismissed a former president of China, correct? And whatever happened to him?
Yeah, that's Hu Jintao, his predecessor, who was frog-marched out of the Communist Party's National Congress, and that was certainly humiliation. Hu Jintao, from some accounts, and I think that they are credible, has been able to exact a certain amount of revenge, which is one of the reasons why I think General Zhang Yaoshao felt that he had the support of the elders to get rid of Xi Jinping. Now, Xi Jinping was, I think, in trouble last year. He consolidated his position, and people like Hu Jintao have again been marginalized.
So you think that former president's still alive?
Yes, and then we've seen him once in public, and that was at the memorial service for Jiang Zemin, who was Hu Jintao's predecessor. But there are reports that after he was frog marched out of the Communist Party's National Congress, that he was placed under essentially house arrest, and so were his family members. So this has been an ongoing struggle between Hu Jintao and Xi Jinping.
And yet, that prior president still must have some clout, you're telling me?
Yes, because in the Communist Party system, elders do have a substantial amount of influence. And so it would be people like Hu Jintao, although he was humiliated in public, nonetheless has networks of influence. When Hu Jintao was General Party Secretary, in other words, the ruler of China, he was the head of a faction in the party called the Communist Youth League. Now, Xi Jinping, when he became General Secretary, tried to eliminate the factions, and to a large extent he was successful. But nonetheless, there are a lot of people who identify with the Communist Youth League, although they may not openly say it, and they do maintain these informal networks of influence.
This is fascinating to me. It's kind of sick, but it is fascinating to me. How did he get so powerful where others before him didn't? Is it just his ambition and others just figured, I'll put in my 10 years and move on?
That's a great question. First of all, Hu Jintao was a consensus leader, and he was considered to be weak. And during Hu's tenure, which was 10 years, China drifted. Although it was successful in large measure, it drifted. And so there was a consensus among Communist Party officials and elders that they needed a strong figure. And so Xi Jinping fit the bill. And what Xi did was he decided he was not only going to be stronger than his predecessor, he was going to try to rival Mao Zedong, the founder of the People's Republic, in power. And so he ruthlessly went after people who he considered to be his political enemies. And he not just marginalized them, he imprisoned them, he stripped them of their assets, he went after their families, and that created a large measure of opposition. People didn't feel that they could move against Xi Jinping, but they have been waiting for the time when they felt it was safe to do so. Because there are a lot of people in Beijing, in the senior reaches of the Communist Party, who would like nothing more than to send Xi Jinping into some prison.
Yeah, but this is the big thing, right? His top general, the general of generals, has now been removed. Yes,
at least that's the majority view of what's happened. And I think that that probably is right. But we know that General Zhang Yaoshao has a lot of people who owe him their careers, and they're not giving up. So they know that Xi Jinping will go hard after them, which means I think that they believe that they might strike because they feel that they had nothing to lose. When you make people desperate, and Xi Jinping has made people desperate, then they will do desperate things. And this was a hallmark of Mao Zedong's rule. And what happened after Mao died in 1976 was that there was a feeling that Mao had gone too far in being relentless. And so there was sort of like a live and let live philosophy that governed Communist Party politics. Xi Jinping, his motto is, I live, you die. And sometimes that very well may be literal.
I want to ask you about that when we come back. I mean, you've talked about how he'll strip them of this, that, and take their property away. Are there mass executions or significant executions that take place after events like this, where he just blows these people out? And if he studies these regimes in the past that have fallen, I suspect he's of the mind from time to time to execute and to rid himself of these people. And what is your take on this, General? Was he moved out because he wanted to move him out? I'm still trying to get my hands around this. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Gordon Chang, Senior Fellow, one of my favorite organizations, Gatestone Institute, one of my favorite guests, Gordon Chang. Gordon, let me ask you this question, actually. With all this tumult going on, is China really in a position, at least in the next year or two, to invade Taiwan?
I don't think so, Mark. Even before all of this turmoil, I don't think Xi Jinping was going to start hostilities by invading the main island of Taiwan. First of all, to do that, this is a combined air, land, sea operation. It means that Xi Jinping has to give some general or admiral almost complete control over the Chinese military, which makes that figure the most powerful person in China. And even on his most secure days, Xi Jinping was not willing to do that. So I don't think he's willing to do it now at a time of turmoil. Plus also, an invasion of Taiwan would be extremely unpopular with the Chinese people, because although the people in Taiwan don't think they're Chinese, the people in the mainland think they are because of decades of indoctrination. And you will hear Chinese people say, whether they're high officials or the guy on the street, they will say, quote, Chinese do not kill Chinese. And of course, an invasion of Taiwan would kill hundreds of thousands of Chinese on both sides. And the other thing is that the Communist Party, despite what it says, is casualty averse. And so Xi Jinping would invade Taiwan only if he thought that he could get a victory, and that victory would be bloodless. Now, with all the turmoil in the Chinese military, it makes it much more difficult, because General Zhang Yaoshao, who was number one officer, he is about one of the few officers left who has any combat experience. Everybody else, they've never had that. And so the Chinese military is now much less capable than it once was. But one other thing, just because they're not going to invade Taiwan, in my belief, I think that the chance of war is high. And the reason is that Xi Jinping believes, in my view, he believes that a high degree of tension is in his personal interest, because that will prevent other Communist Party figures from challenging him. And so he's provoking incidents from India in the south to South Korea in the north. And if one of those goes wrong, it could go really, really wrong and embroil the entire East Asia in war.
I mean, he's even taking on Japan lately, isn't he?
He did. November 7th, the new Japanese Prime Minister, Takeichi Sanai, in response to a question on the floor of the Diet, said that if China were to invade Taiwan, that would be a, quote, survival-threatening situation. That's a phrase from the 2015 National Security Law of Japan, and it would allow her to mobilize the self-defense forces. Well, Beijing threw a fit, and it was not only propaganda, it was economic pressure, all sorts of stuff, and they have not been able to get her to retract her statement. And she became incredibly popular because she was standing up to Xi Jinping. So China looks a little hollow in that they were not able to get what they considered to be an inferior country, and a woman to boot, that they couldn't get her to back down. And so China is furious.
In fact, isn't Japan building up its military now?
It is. There's Takeichi's predecessor, Ishiba, had basically signed on to a program of increasing defense spending by 50% over 5 years. The question is, where is Japan going to get the money? Because its economy is not very good. But the point is, there's now a sense throughout Japan, throughout the elites, that they've got to spend more on defense because China is threatening them. So China is creating this sort of coalition against it throughout the region, as countries are now starting to cooperate a lot more and cooperate with Taiwan, as Japan is doing.
You've got Japan. They've threatened South Korea. They've threatened the Philippines, of course. They're fighting over islands there. They're threatening Australia. They're even threatening Vietnam, aren't they?
Yes, and that has been for quite some time. China claims about 80% of the South China Sea, although it's international water. It's engaged in some very belligerent tactics, especially against the Philippines at places like Scarborough Shoal, Second Thomas Shoal, Sandy Key. And sometimes the Chinese humiliate themselves, as they did in August at Scarborough Shoal, where a Chinese destroyer collided with a Chinese Coast Guard ship and killed at least 4 Coast Guardsmen. And so China's been throwing a fit since then at Scarborough because they believe that they need to get revenge against the Philippines.
But their own ships banged into each other, right?
That's right.
So why are you getting revenge against the Philippines?
I'm not saying it's logical, Mark. I'm just saying that's the way they're thinking.
Now, in terms of their economy's constantly hurting, isn't it?
Yes. Well, about 10 days ago, they reported 5.0% growth for 2025. I don't think so. There's a group called Rhodium, which does very detailed analysis of the Chinese economy. They think the Chinese economy grew 2.5 to 3% last year. I think you better case for like 1%, maybe 0, maybe -1. But we're seeing a lot of underlying indicators that suggest contraction. But however fast they're growing, even if they were growing at 5.0, they're not growing fast enough to retire the debt that they've accumulated, especially since 2008. So China right now is in a very, very difficult position, and Xi Jinping's policies are making things worse. He's driving the economy down.
What's he doing?
He believes that China should become a manufacturing powerhouse and that consumption should not be the basis of the Chinese economy. So he's put a lot of money into factories. That's created deflation. Once you start creating deflation, people stop buying, which means that the economy becomes even more fragile. The only way out is that they can export more, and they were very good at exporting last year, $1.19 trillion trade surplus. But there was a lot of buts to that, and it's not as good as it sounds. So right now, the Chinese economy is essentially, it's flatlining. And I think that people in China, a very pessimistic country right now, they do not like what they're seeing because they're seeing basically a contraction for the first time in their lives. COVID was a shock. Everybody thought that they would recover fast. It didn't recover fast. And China's right now, I think, on a trend line for zero or contraction for a very long period.
Mm-hmm. But it still isn't giving up its ambitions in a significant way. I mean, there it is sending plane load after plane load after plane load of something or other to Iran, right?
Yes. 16 cargo planes by the last count. And these are like planes which rival the size of our C-17s. So these are big cargo planes. Right now, China's not giving up its ambitions, but because of President Trump, it's suffered one setback after another, especially after May of last year when Trump went through that triumphal tour of 3 Gulf states. So China's been on the back foot for quite some time. And of course, they've lost their Venezuelan ally. They could very well lose what's their Iranian proxy. And so this is not a good story for Xi Jinping. But he's not giving up because he believes that he should rule the world. And I mean
now,
that. He believes he should rule the world.
Now, he lost Venezuela's oil. Well, maybe he's getting it, but not the same way he used to. And he could lose Iran's, depending on what happens there. Then what does he do?
His factories have to pay a lot more. Yeah, he's in big trouble. Trump said that he would sell China Venezuelan oil, but Trump didn't say, and this was the important thing from China's point of view, Trump is not going to sell it at a discount. And that's what China was counting on because Venezuela owes China somewhere between $12 and $20 billion. And the only way Venezuela could pay that back was to sell oil at these hefty discounted prices. And so Chinese factories have gotten used to cheap energy. They're not getting that anymore. And if they lose Iran, which is even more important to them from an energy point of view, then they're in a world of hurt.
Mm-hmm. Now, if people want to follow you, where do they go?
At Twitter, X, at GORDONGCHANG. And I archive all my articles for free on my website, which is www.GORDONCHANG.com.
All right, my friend. Thanks for everything you do. You're fantastic. And best to your wife, too.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. And best to Julie. And thank you for this opportunity.
You're welcome. And God bless you, brother. He's fantastic, Gordon Chang. Excuse me. I must be getting the cold from this weather. I hate the damn snow. Hate it. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You have that cut on Christy Nome talking about what happened to that guy, Mr. Producer? Yeah. All right, I want to play that. Cut 14, Christy Nome, go.
About hundreds of protesters then showed up at the scene. They began to obstruct and to assault law enforcement officers. We saw objects being thrown at them, including ice and other objects, and a rampant assault began, and even an HSI officer agent's finger was bitten off. Crowd control.
Stop right there. Got that? Was bitten off. Bitten off. That's so... Go ahead.
Were deployed to bring safety to the public and to law enforcement at the scene.
Mm-hmm. Now they want to impeach her. Now they trash her. Because of the optics, America. Because of the optics. I don't think Reagan would give a damn about the optics. I don't believe Trump will give a damn about the optics. The optics are intended to look bad because this is what the Marxists do. This is what the Democrats do. So when you have a ridiculous governor of Oklahoma and others, what's the end game here? Excuse me? This is why Trump is so unique. This is why Reagan was so unique. These are unprincipled individuals who are in powerful positions. To do what? What are we supposed to do? Let 20 million illegal aliens stay? And the worst of them? Have you ever seen these kinds of protests or objections when an American citizen is murdered, when a little girl is raped and murdered by an illegal alien? We have their names. We put them out. President puts them out. Congress puts them out. Republicans. Nobody even blinks twice. Democrats don't blink at all. But here, the world's coming to an end. It's really appalling, quite frankly. Let's go to Mike in Utah, XM Satellite. Mike, go right ahead, please.
Hey, Mark, first-time caller, long-time listener.
Thank you, Mike.
I first want to say I'm a 27-year Coast Guard veteran that
God bless
Coast Guard because of their humanitarian mission. I love what they've done, and they're involved in life-saving instead of life-taking. So I'm a peace-loving guy, but I just can't.
So hold on one second. So you actually were on a boat?
Well, I was on a ship.
A ship.
Part of the time. Most of my time was on land in Kodiak, Alaska, and
wow,
and Port Angeles, Washington. I was a storekeeper, running payroll mainly. So
I only ask you that because I would get nauseous on those damn boats with those big waves. Anyway, go right ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering why we aren't considering all these brought-in communists and the socialists and even Islamists as terrorists and putting them in jail.
You're not allowed to say that, sir. That apparently is very provocative. They may not be terrorists, but if they're attacking ICE, they're definitely criminals, aren't they?
Well, the fact of the matter is they're anti-America. As a longtime patriot, I believe those who come to our country and want to overthrow it, which includes a lot of American citizens even, that the president takes an oath to protect us from enemies, foreign and domestic. And I think that these people want to change our way of government. They want to get rid of our democratic...
Well, I definitely don't disagree with you. I mean, I definitely agree with you. And this is a big deal. And I hope we're not stepping back just because of the media and these extremists in the Democrat Party. Thank you for your call, my friend. The next battle is going to be closing the government. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, especially in bad weather, man. The men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, the men and women in Iran. And you, the American people, thank you, and God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow.